Then, I will thank you for joining us. We're waiting on you. And said we can't go any further till Dawood get here. Inshallah. Everybody enjoying themselves? Yes. So your children.
I turned everything off.
In fact, that's one of the questions we got. Why does the sister's phone keep going off? Okay, so alhamdulillah, we're going to get started. We got the blended family out. Anybody want to make any more questions, concerns about the blended family, inshallah ta'ala? We good there? Alhamdulillah. Go ahead, niece.
Okay, I feel sisters should understand and recognize when their husbands are speaking from Quran and Sunnah and not from themselves. They should accept the way of Allah and not rebel.
Repeat the question because we didn't get everybody's attention. Everybody with us? One more time, niece.
I feel sisters should understand and recognize when their husbands are speaking from Quran and Sunnah and not from themselves. They should accept the way of Allah and not rebel. And how we address this question, we wanted to make sure that the brothers were a clear example in their actions of Quran and Sunnah. And not just telling us Quran and Sunnah, but in fact living the life of Quran and Sunnah so that we see it in their practice as well as in what they preach.
Alhamdulillah. Anybody want that question? Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, but we also understand that regardless of the actions, the Quran and Sunnah is Quran and Sunnah, so that has...
One moment, brother, one moment. Thank you, Akil. Akil, you're doing a masterful job, man.
I think it's also important to understand that regardless of one's actions, Quran and Sunnah is Quran and Sunnah, and it still must be followed. You might be doing a wrong action and saying the right thing. That don't mean it should be disregarded.
Great point.
If you're not, engaging in the correct actions at that time.
No. So no, we were not saying to disregard Quran and Sunnah. That's not what we're saying. We're saying in addition to telling us about Quran and Sunnah, we want to see you practice Quran and Sunnah also.
No, what he was saying was, if I'm not mistaken, if he said something and it offers some advice and it's not necessarily Quran and Sunnah, but it's good. No, what the brother saying is this. What it sound like to me that he's saying, if I'm saying it right, brother, wherever you at, what he's saying is this. Assalamu alaikum. I think what the brother is saying is this. Even if our actions are not exactly up to par with the Quran and Sunnah, if it's right, it's right. Quran and Sunnah trump anything else. What you were saying is right. We do have to live it and be an example. That's the best teaching is by example. But what the brother's saying, if I'm not mistaken, bro, if it is Quran and Sunnah, that trump, don't look at the flaws in the person to accept the truth from Quran and Sunnah. Is that it, bro?
Yes. And so what I said was that we agree. We agree with that. Quran and Sunnah trumps everything else. But in addition to that, we want to see it in practice and not just in word.
That's how all of us had to live.
Right, good.
Sisters, you want to make a comment concerning that?
Yeah, right. Using it when it's convenient.
We asked if the brothers cannot pick and choose when to use Quran.
Give me an example of how that can be. When you wrote the question down, how did you I mean, when you were writing it, it was really coming out. You wrote it in red ink. Who asked the question?
This is a question from a brother.
Who asked the question on brother's
From a
side?
brother.
So what do you mean by that, sis? Anybody want to help her?
Okay, what we were saying is how the brothers say to some sisters not to be out after Maghrib. However, they hang out long past Isha, and it's like, okay, yeah. And then well, they're like, okay.
Okay. Brother, what's your name again?
Brother, like the battle?
Brother Batter. Okay. Brother Batter wants to say something. Then Brother Ali.
I said like the
I
battle.
mean, you raised your hand, man. That's it. You were doing this, but I thought you were in there, man.
I think what the brother and
Listen
some
up.
of the brothers and sisters may take advice to is that it's not a prerequisite. A person may be in the process of changing himself to flower as a Quran and Sunnah practice, but if they're advising somebody upon Quran and Sunnah, that may be the helping hand that they need to see the practice within them to help them grow. So it's not a prerequisite to say, we're not, I hope any of us will not use it as a tool to use against somebody or command them in a certain way that we wouldn't want ourselves commanded. But it's not a prerequisite. It's the same way if a sister says something based on one Quran and Sunnah to myself or other men, it's not a prerequisite that they're practicing it themselves.
Great point. Anyone want to add to that? Comment on that? Sisters, man, don't.
I ask a question, bro.
Huh? Okay, brother. The sister in the pink and then the sister back in the red.
I understand all of that, but I think it's difficult for
What's your name, sis?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mickey.
Sister Mickey, yes, ma'am.
But I think it's difficult to receive that direction when the person is not practicing what they're preaching. So you can know all day what the Quran and Sunnah is. You can, that's just the bottom line. It's just difficult. It's just difficult to receive that action or to receive that direction when the person is not doing it. So
I'm trying to think of an example give me an example. Help me, sister. Give me an example.
I can give you one. A friend of mine, for instance.
What sister said she's going to talk about her own lifestyle.
No, I didn't say it was me, but a friend of mine, a matter of her husband requesting that she wear like niqab or gloves, for instance, and he doesn't pray 5 times a day. So she's looking at it as it's not, but it's not, ordained that, I, face and hands are permissible to be out. I guess it differs. But she's just saying you're not even doing the bare minimum.
That's perplexing.
And you're right. So that's an example. Might be a little bit extreme, but it's an example, and it's real.
So how do you address that?
We just can't be hypocrites.
Exactly.
It claps, exactly, your sincerity. And then he could be sincere in that, but we just can't be that way, man. Putting something on someone that we can't even do the bare minimum of.
So you took the word out of my mouth. I was just going to say you can't be a hypocrite. It's almost similar to if a husband was teaching his wife as opposed to a mother teaching her child. We can't go back in the day and say, do as I say, not as I do. We can't do that.
Right.
It's not.
Right. MashaAllah. I had counseled a couple, and they had a problem with Facebook. How many has had Facebook issues?
I don't like everybody.
I mean, the brother didn't want his wife on Facebook, but he was probably Mr. Facebook King. To not just you, to everybody.
Right.
But he don't want on Facebook, and I said, you can't be like that. I'm not about to say his name, but you can't be like that, brother. You can't demand of her not to be on Facebook, and she didn't have nothing but sister friends. And so I said, you can't be that way. And that's, we just can't be hypocritical, May Allah guide all of us. Next question coming from the sisters. Dear brothers, how can you learn to communicate with your wife about problems without pointing out blame? Just communicating, learning to use I statements versus only you statements. Damn, sister.
No, I was just going to say, I think you have to just use we statements.
Pronoun we goes a long way. When I'm giving cook bars, I try to make it a point as you. I make it a very, and when I go listen to brothers, you've been to the cook bars where brothers, all they saying is, you doing this, and you doing that, and you doing this. I make it a point, we, us, me, I. And so it is when dealing with, in human relationships. I was in the prison talking to a brother I was working in the prison. Now look at y'all. I knew it. I was working in the prison talking to a brother one time, and he said he got into an argument, pointing blame over a brother, and it escalated into a killing. And I thought about it. I said, how many people are in jail right now just because they couldn't walk away? Pointing blame, triggering a response, just because they couldn't walk away. Just because they couldn't say, okay, it's me, brother, no problem. And so it is. How many people divorced over that? Far more than people have gotten killed over. So we understand that pronouns we goes a long way. That's easily understood, right? Anyone else want to comment on that? Yes, sir.
I just think that most of us haven't been taught how to communicate. Everybody says we should talk, we should do this, we do that.
How do we teach one how to communicate? How do you teach someone how to communicate if you've never seen it before? How many people grew up in a family where there was always combustion in the family? And find yourself at times acting that out in your own lives? Yeah.
I mean, I think that's some of the things that needs to be covered, just like basic life skills in the masjid, so that people can understand what does that actually mean. Because a lot of times we just generalize, make these generalized statements, and people don't really know how to communicate as far as body language and all that, those type of things. Unless you've been in a management class, most of us don't know.
Exactly.
I think one of the benefits of the marriage retreat in the Poconos, we spent some significant time talking about a method of communication that I think worked very well, and I think really helped the couples to open up and communicate better with their spouses. So come to the marriage retreat again, and you'll get to see it also.
Sure.
Could y'all just talk about the transparency part?
Right, okay, so we talked about, yeah, they were there. We talked about the 5 levels of communication, and the 5 levels are cliche, you know, how you doing, what's up, you're really not saying anything to anybody. Fact, you're giving them just the facts of the situation.
You write these down. Because this is important, and this is a bonus here.
Here's a marker.
How many people were at the marriage retreat? Wasn't this a good session we had?
Yes.
No, right.
Oh, that boy, you want dry erase. Okay. So we talked about different methodologies of ways of communicating, and the communication that's best when you're trying to communicate with the spouse. So we started talking about cliche. That's the first level of communication. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, how you doing, what's up? It's just cliche. You're not saying anything, doesn't really mean anything for somebody that you don't know, you're really not sharing anything about yourself. I'm going to give the example that I used at the couples retreat. It's hot as fish grease. You know, it's a cliche. You get the idea that it's hot as fish grease. So then the next level is fact. The fact is it's 99 degrees and it's March. That's the fact. So we go from cliche to fact. The third level is opinion, where you're sharing your opinion with somebody. You're going to tell them a little bit more about yourself. You're sharing your opinion. So my opinion is it's too early to be so hot. That's my opinion. March is too early for it to be 99 degrees. That's my opinion. So I've gone from it's hot as fish grease to it's 99 degrees to it's too early to be this hot.
First you're asking, how are you doing, right?
Yeah, somebody just asks you, how are you doing? And you say it's hot as fish grease. That's the response. You're just giving them a cliche. So we've gone from cliche, hot as fish grease, to fact, it's 99 degrees, to my opinion, it's too hot, it's too early to be this hot. Next is emotion, where I'm sharing more about myself now. And then when you're with a spouse, you really want to be able to give your emotions and share how you feel. So the emotion is, this heat makes me really sad. So when someone says, how are you doing? And I tell them it's hot as fish grease, they don't really know what's going on with me. But the more we talk, the closer I am to them, I can say as an emotion, this heat makes me sad. Sadness is an emotion. I'm expressing an emotion. And the last level is transparency. So the transparency is, last summer, my grandmother had a heat stroke. I was supposed to go check on her. Her air conditioning didn't work. She had a heat stroke. That's why the heat makes me sad. But unless you're really close to me, I'm not going to be transparent and share what's really going on. But the closer we are to one another, the more comfortable and a safer space it should be for spouses to be able to be transparent with one another. But there's a responsibility that comes with being transparent. If I am transparent with Jaleel and I tell him something that's very sensitive and caring and I'm sharing something about him and he busts out laughing, well, I'm going to be reluctant to be that transparent again. For example, if I say to him, you know what, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a dancer with the Dance Theater of Harlem. You know, right? And he laughs and I can see you in a tutu now, dancing across. And, you know, and I'm like, dang, okay. I won't be sharing anything else with him that significant. I'm sharing a part of me. But if I tell him that and he's, you know, very caring about it, and then the next week he says, hey, I got us tickets to New York, we're going to the Dance Theater of Harlem, we're going backstage, you're going to meet some of the dancers, then I know he's taking what I said as in a very sacred way, that I can be transparent with him. I can share with him how I feel about things and know that he's going to respect and care for it. So a lot of times when we are communicating with one another, we hardly get past opinion or fact. It's all cliche. You ain't this, you ain't that. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? This is Quran and Sunnah, blah, blah, blah. You know, we're not really getting to the emotion of the situation. We're not sharing how we really feel about it. We're not being transparent because generally when you're arguing about something, that's not really what the problem is. There's generally something else behind that. That's the problem, but the argument is just covering what the real issue is. We talked about in the sisters class about cursing, about how generally people start cursing when they run out of words to express how they feel. And when we have exhausted our knowledge of words, and we have exhausted our vocabulary, and we can't think of anything else to say to express how we really feel, we start cussing people out just to back them off of us. But it becomes detrimental to the relationship. So in a marriage, people want transparency. I want to know Jaleel's heart. I don't want to know what he's going to tell everybody else or what he's telling. I want to know his heart. I want to know what's in his heart. I want to know what makes him happy, what makes him sad, what irritates him, what frustrates him. I want the transparency because that lets me know that you're sharing with me what's for me.
Lisa, how far can you go with that?
You can go very far. It helps to build the relationship. It helps people to know that I can be vulnerable. Now, a lot of times men don't want to be vulnerable. We had a discussion like, what's the problem? What's the point about being vulnerable? Who wants to be vulnerable? But when you are able to be vulnerable, you are able to let down your guard. The sister said, you know, if a man can't be weak in front of his wife, what's the point? Everybody wants to know that when they have a breakdown, when they have a moment and they have to cry or be sad or be, you know, vulnerable about a situation, then I know I can go to him and it's going to be okay.
One of the things that I got you, brothers, both of you. One of the things that prohibited me from being vulnerable with Lisa is I grew up in a household where my mother ripped my father to shreds with her girlfriends and children, everybody, and I would, though it was true, most of it, I just thought that not being a Muslim, I just thought that should be within the household, which is the Sunnah. And so me growing up seeing that all my life, I wasn't about to be vulnerable with no woman because I know that's what she's going to do. She's going to call my boy Abdullah up and tell him she's going to do this when I make a mistake. And like one of the questions, we'll get to it later, sister said, why can I keep following someone who keeps making mistake after mistake after mistake? And so that's one of the reasons that prohibits mostly brothers from being vulnerable, because the level of trust in someone securing you is not
there. And I told him, I said, you know, you have a wounded heart. I mean, that's why it's reluctant for you to be, you're reluctant to be vulnerable because you have a wounded heart. But over time, you will see, I'm a safe space. I'm going to honor you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to revere you. I'm going to hold you up to your family, your friends, our acquaintances, everywhere you go. You will find I am a safe space. And that's what everybody needs to know, that they have a safe space. And when, in fact, we can become a safe space for one another, the vulnerability will come. You willingly want to share what's going on in your heart because you know It's a safe space. It will help you to become closer. It bonds you together. And the transparency, when you're able to be transparent, it just creates closeness between the two. And it was amazing when we did the exercise in the Poconos, how the couples were able to, we had each couple go through all of these steps with their spouses, one-on-one, and in a group, two people, and be transparent. Talk about an issue and talk about it in all those different levels and express a transparency. I mean, we had brothers who were in tears. He said, I've never been able to tell my wife this. I had been holding this back in my heart for like 10 years. I had never been able to tell her until we did this exercise with them. Because it helps you to create a safe space. So if I'm talking about something and I'm just on a cliche level all the time, then I'm really holding back. I'm denying myself the benefit of a closeness with him. I'm denying him the reality of who I am. Because I'm just being cliche or fact or opinion, sharing maybe a little emotion here and there. He really doesn't know the real me because I can't be transparent and he feels like he can't be transparent. You know, we're denying each other the blessing of what Allah has ordained in marriage. Because we should both be a safe space for each other. I think the tape is ending.
No.
Okay.
We counseled a family. I got you, sis, and I got the two brothers here. I want to make this point. I counseled a couple one time, and it came out what their problem was. The sister didn't honor his vulnerability. In a difficult moment in their marriage, he indicated that he had been raped as a teenager. And she was consoling him and, you know, comforting him and touching his soul. And about 7 months later, an argument came out, and she said, "That's why you're a faggot." Oh. I mean, you know, not.
There it goes.
I mean, you done. I mean, really? I mean, what? I mean, I said, sister, what? What can I say with that? You done crushed the man. I mean, he started crying crocodile tears in front of me. He said, "Jaleel, I didn't want to be involved in them like that." And they still struggling right now. And she promised that she would never do that again. I said, "But you know, tough.
Who's going to risk?
Yeah.
Who will take the risk now of putting themselves in a vulnerable situation for you now too? But see, it's the same thing, sisters, when we disrespect our husbands, but by talking about them dishonorably to family, friends, everybody else.
Tell them what happens then.
You know,
the story you always give.
Which one?
When you go back and tell a sister or your parents or your sibling that Abdur-rahim did this and he did that, and then you and Abdur-rahim make up 6 months later because of counseling from Shudder Shadid, counseling from whoever, and you all have patched things up. You've forgiven them.
They have not forgotten.
They ain't forgave them.
They have not, because they don't experience the makeup.
Right.
They are still, you go to them with your anger and they absorb your anger and hurt.
I mean, that's a natural tendency.
Exactly. These are your family, your friends, they care about you. They have absorbed your anger and hurt. You've gotten back with your husband, you all resolved the issue, you all have made up, everything's all lovey-dovey. They're looking at you like, I'm still mad at him. Why are you happy with him now? He did ABC. Oh, I forgave him. But wait a minute. He did ABC and did. Oh, that's nothing. I forgave him because after we have forgiven, they have not forgotten. They didn't experience the makeup. We need to go back to them and say everything is all fine now. Everything is all well and good. So we have to be very, very careful who we share information with about our spouse, because they may be low down today, but they may be on it tomorrow.
Do you think Khadijah went back and said, Prophet was crying, shaking, going in convulsions? You think she did that with somebody? Look who the one conveyed it. It was the Messenger of Allah conveying it in honor of Khadijah, in honor of her, giving us an example that we can live by 1,400 years later. Brother, please.
The question I was asking, a lot of black men growing up in the hood, and we were always taught that a lot of brothers in Philadelphia and all over in the cities were always
Okay, can you say we have 1 minute left on the table. We just want to give our contact information, and then we can maybe come back to that question on the next tape, because that'll be much longer. But anyway, if you to reach us, we're Nisa Muhammad, Jalil Muhammad. We are part of the Wedded Bliss Foundation, www.weddedblissinc.com. You can reach us. You want to put our phone numbers up there also. These are our cell numbers, best way to reach us. And we are more than happy to come back and serve. This is what we do. We're committed to really helping couples in our community be successful, and we're so very happy to be a part of the UMM family.
Thank you. Can I ask you one question?
Yeah,
Hold on, let
kind
the
of hold
brother-
it so we can finish this tape.
Oh, okay.
And
We'll
then,
continue till 9, but it's fine.
Oh, okay.
He's just got to change the tape. And then we're going to go back to the brother, and so he can finish. They just got to change the tape.